Morning. Call the executive committee meeting for Tuesday, August 22nd to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Tripp?
Present.
Mr. Legess? Mr. Olthoff? Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. McConnell?
Present.
Mr. Scott? Mr. Snipes? Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Mr. Seroy?
Present.
Mr. Hildebrand? Ms. Weber? Mr. Lear? Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Alrighty, I have no public comment this morning. No presentations. Approval of minutes, July 25th. I need a motion to approve. Mr. Burns, second. Mr. Hess, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We're going to skip legislative today. Mr. Lear had something that pulled him away out of town, so we'll circle back on that. There wasn't a lot that was extremely pressing, but we'll get catch up on that at the next executive meeting. And if he's back tomorrow for some reason, then we might catch up in finance in case he has something to let us know. No appointments under information services. Mr. Duval, do you have anything today? Sure.
I didn't see any notice. I was just going to do some sound. Make sure the sound levels are acceptable too. Okay, can you hear me clearly now? We spent the last few weeks working on the sound system. I talked to Andy after the last meeting, and he actually opened up some parameters for me that allowed me to look into it further. But before we go to that next stage, which is potentially replacing parts of the sound system, I wanted to do some tests. I really needed a meeting here, so I waited for mine to see. We took the overall volumes up, and then we tried to be more specific for different microphones, which you really can't tell if different people sit at a different microphone, and if you speak at a different level, then that sounds off. But basically, I wanted to hear, the grouping that I was concerned with is back there. Can you hear through that speaker?
What'd you say? That's why he's concerned. Here's the question. You want to hear from us?
Well, that's where the yeah. This one I turned up a lot, but it's going to be a problem when Steve sits here or somebody like that, because this is turned up a lot. So,
Yeah.
McCarty. Oh, yeah, because
We can put up with that.
Yeah, we can handle it.
part of that was probably us. I thought that to adjust the video, we took all the sound levels because the video was, we took it all down. Well, we didn't realize we probably took it down so far that we weren't sending enough power to the speakers. So I jumped it all up. So though, in your full board meetings, when you tend to have a lot of microphones up, and you may start getting that feedback, which is what first made us take it all down. So if I'm not here and you hear that, there's some adjustments that may have to happen, or when that feedback goes off, I'm sure you've been in the meeting, you can't have the meeting, it goes crazy, at that point. So that's all really I wanted to do, is find out, are these sound levels acceptable to you? Can you hear from there?
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it like that.
Okay,
Sounds good.
that's about it.
Booming.
No money spent.
Music to my ears.
See, that microphone's not working now.
Good job, Kevin.
I have a baritone voice, so if you can hear me, that means you should be able to hear any. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
All right, moving on. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Health Department, John Beavis. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'll try not to talk too loud then. It looks like a lot on my agenda, but really I think most of it is short and sweet. It's just some updates of things that we've been working on. I think I had talked about the first one before, the EPA cleanup in Pembroke Township. Just wanted to give you an update on that. I've been receiving I think it's about twice a month I'm getting reports from the EPA in regards to their status, and I forward those to Mr. Wheeler so that he can have those too. And I went out to the site yesterday just to confirm, this latest report that I got towards the end of about 2 weeks ago for the end of July activities. But they have pretty much finished their work out there. So just as a reminder, in case you aren't aware, this was an old tire fire and illegal dumping site that was discovered through a complaint to the EPA. I'm not sure exactly when the complaint originated. It didn't come through the health department or the county that I'm aware of at the time. It was handled by the EPA in relation to when they inspected it and the type of contamination that they found, and then it qualified for an EPA cleanup site. So they took care of this and then eventually had made contact with some officials here locally to let us be aware of the activities that were going on out in that area, so no one would be caught unaware or think that something suspicious was going on when it's actually quite the opposite. So it's the site of the location for the dumping that had occurred, and the fire was at 17,000 East Road and 3,000 South Road, so towards the Indiana border, but on our side in Pembroke Township. It's a wooded area. It appears that there used to be some old county road that maybe had gone in through there at some point, but many years ago has not been used and has been overgrown, and they didn't even know there was a road back in there, but that's how they discovered some of the material that was cleaned up. So as of today, they've completely removed all the contaminated soil. They've replaced it and backfilled it with the new clean fill, so that's done. The drums, the contaminated soil was taken to Newton County landfill in Indiana. That's where that was able to be taken. And then the contaminated, the drums and the material that were in those barrels, there were 35 barrels. The original report said hundreds of containers, but that was not the case. There were 35. Those were taken to a company called Chemtron Corporation in Ohio, Avon, Ohio, that can take hazardous materials. The backfill of the new soil was done. They've removed the gravel roads. They put a fence around that property to hopefully eliminate, at least at this location, future dumpings of any kind. And then they've demobilized all their equipment and personnel. So they're gone. They're off the site. The only thing left for them to do is they're going to come back later in the fall and seed the property with the natural grasses and or plant material that would normally be there, but they can't do it now because it's not the time of the year that you would plant that stuff. So they have to come back later and do that. So that's all I had. So that seems to be finished and done.
The one thing I'd want to mention on this is there were some assertions that this was the county's property. It's held by the county trustee, which is the representative of all of the taxing districts. So it is not county property. That was out there in a certain publication, and that is not the case. So it's unfortunate this happened, and it's not something that we look the other way about. It's when somebody doesn't pay their taxes, the trustee takes possession of it and is in charge of the tax sale. So just want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Please.
So that's it for that. If nobody has any questions on that, then I'll move down. On number 2, I had listed the West Nile virus update. This isn't so much an update on the individual that the human case that we have, but it's an update that to date we don't have any additional new human cases, which is a good thing. There appears to have been great demand for education, so our website and the locations that we put out some information, the newspaper articles have been drawing great public interest, so I think people are aware of it now, especially if they were friends or knew who this individual was. So they're taking it seriously, as they should, and we want to get that education out, so that's a good thing. And then we're continuing through the health department, the environmental health department division, to monitor the 4 locations that we do. And we do that with the grant, that monitoring and the collection and testing for the West Nile virus mosquito and the collection of larvae. That will continue until we have our first frost. So that's typically, that knocks down then the insect or the mosquito population. You won't see much or any more activity after that because it's just going to be too cold for them. But it seems later in last year, I think that went till early November before we actually got that first frost. So you can still get mosquito activity, that late. And this is the time of the year. I was just talking with Kevin, that we get the longer, hotter, drier spells. The rain is a little more infrequent, and that's conducive then to this West Nile mosquito. So this is where we'll start to see statewide, more positive hits for mosquito pools or birds that are being submitted or testing positive, and then maybe more human cases being diagnosed, not necessarily here, but it seems to be in our area. The first human case was Will County, and then right on the heels of that was Kankakee's case. So I've not heard any additional human cases, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. They could have just been in other locations in the state and not necessarily close to ours. Any questions on that? All right, great. Moving along. So then to follow up with West Nile virus, shortly after our press release for that, we were notified that we had 4 bats, Kankakee County, have had 4 bats that we have had test positive for rabies within the past 2 months. So July and August, or maybe late June into about now. Last year, I think in Kankakee County, we had 2, and then there were a total of 63 bats for the state. So 4 is a number. So again, like West Nile virus, we know it's here in the community. Rabies is present in the community, but this just confirms that. And then we sent out a press release basically just to inform people, if you have bats in the house, don't try to, take caution in trying to catch them. They can be caught, captured, and even if they're accidentally killed, and as long as the brains are not damaged, animal control can collect those, send those off, and they can be tested for the rabies, which I don't have the information in regards to these 4 cases. If these were 4 situations where they were captured in a home, or say 2 were captured in a home and 2 were found dead on the sidewalk, that I don't know. It doesn't matter. The bats were present from Kankakee County and tested positive. So you do need to be careful. And if a bat is found in a bedroom, for example, in the morning that somebody slept in, then that individual, one, you want to try to get that bat so that it can be tested, but 2, because their teeth are so small, if there was to have been a potential exposure through a bite, it's possible that you or the individual in that room wouldn't even know it. It's very almost like a needle type thing, so you might not feel it. And so if there's any kind of a chance that there was an exposure, then you contact the health department, and we can go through the process of determining whether or not you would need to have vaccinations for that. And they've come a long way with the vaccinations, but it's still probably not something that you would want to have to go through the situation.
Do you bring this information to the public? I don't remember reading it, because I think it'd be important to people out there know about this.
Well, we send the press release to all the papers. We send it to the radio stations. Now we look in the papers. I can't say that I remember seeing this in the paper, but that doesn't mean it wasn't. Sometimes they'll take our articles and condense them, not necessarily provide all the information that we want. The radio stations seem to be pretty good about getting that information out there, and then we put it on our website. So it's definitely posted on our website and our Facebook page. So
I think that, what you're saying to us, I think it's good. And I think more people need to know it.
So, well, I appreciate that, and that's part of what we want to try to do maybe is at a meeting like this, maybe just be a little more, if we have press releases, it's something that we've started to do internally. Some of the staff were like, I didn't know you sent that press release out. So we're starting to send them anything we send out so they're aware of it. I could potentially send it here if you wish.
Excuse me, yes, I would probably end up scanning that and then putting it at the county's Facebook page.
Okay.
And then people can link to it from their pages and then
That's
send it that way. And employees can do the
great
same. Excuse me, but it seems like you get more of a local population by using the social media aspect than print. And no offense to our print friends over there that aren't here today, but that's a great way to get to the population that may not be reading it. So
it does seem to be sign of the times is more the social media aspect of where you're trying to get your news as opposed to, waiting for the paper to come, not, so I know there's less and less people getting the paper. Then you've got the Herald versus the Journal, and some people just do one or the other. And so it's, we know we're not reaching everybody just by sending out to them. That's why we do the radio stations. And now that we do have Facebook and a lot of these other organizations, that if you can like them, how that all works, you just start to spread it out, and someone catches it and shares it with a friend who knew somebody type thing. The fourth item is just, we had a couple of back to school clinics this summer. We had one in late June and then one just a couple of weeks ago. The first one kind of came on short notice when we decided to do this, but basically it was helping to provide the physicals for some of the children in relation to, the school requirements that they would need to have, making sure that they've got their immunizations up to date, doing any of the physicals that would be required for school, and then an opportunity, maybe if they came in and saw some of the services that we could provide for them, if they were interested, then we could get them signed up for that. So the first one, we saw approximately 20 people, didn't go as well as we wanted. But again, the notices were short in terms of that, so we understood that. But the second one, we had approximately 110 people who had signed up, so we had a great turnout that day, and the air conditioner went out in the lobby where everyone was waiting, and a toilet overflowed, and I was out of the office at a meeting in Moment, so it was the day of that leadership conference actually. So I was learning stuff to do, but they were doing all the hard work back here at the department. But they did a great job. I didn't hear where there were really a lot of complaints about the air conditioning. We had to bring out extra chairs and things like that, but it went really well. And I just wanted to commend our Board of Health president, Dr. Acantillo, volunteered his time, didn't charge the health department for his normal hourly rate, but he came on both those days and served all those clients, free of charge for us. So we greatly appreciate that. And we've got a certificate for him. He wasn't at the last meeting, but we're going to present that with him, thanking him for his time and helping us do that. And then we learned, some things that we'll try to do, better for next year when we offer this again. But that was just for information to let you know. Along similar lines, we held a WIC Farmers Market a week ago for our Women, Infants, and Children. That's what the WIC stands for, Women, Infants, and Children program. They receive coupons. They come in and they receive some services, and they get coupons for food. And so similar to the Kankakee Farmers Market, where they can utilize these coupons also, we hosted a mini one at our health department. We had 2 local farmers come in, and they provided a large amount of produce. And so once the clients came in, received their services, got their coupons, they were able to go outside and purchase a number of these supplies and kind of get educated by our nutritionists on some of the things that they could be buying, should be buying, and how to prepare them, things like that in terms of their diet and nutrition to help them. That's part of the requirements of that grant. And there was approximately 150 individuals that were able to utilize that service. And actually, if you'd have driven by and pulled into the parking lot next year, feel free. You don't have to have the coupon. You could have paid cash to those farmers, and I'm sure they would have taken that. And you could have bought, just like a roadside stand, you could have purchased yourself also. So, any questions on that? The last thing I had was the opioid grant that the health department was able to secure, and in working with Mr. Gessner, the coroner's office, and then Riverside Hospital. Some of the requirements through that grant are that we're going to be performing 3 to 4 forums to discuss the opioid issue in Kankakee County, and what we're doing about it, and the signs and symptoms, and treatment and recovery and things like that. The first one that we're having, so this is an invitation. We've scheduled this for September 25th. It's at ONU, and I might butcher this name. It's Wisner. That's the location where it will be. Nursing building thank you. And at 6 p.m. It'll be approximately an hour. We're planning on having at each of these 6 to 7 speakers who will answer questions along the topic of the opioid issue. And we've got a long list of individuals that we'd like to have talk, but we don't want to have them all talk at the first one. Then the other forums end up just being repeats of what the first one was. And we want to try to be able to expand upon that, or if issues come up, then that's something maybe we can address at the next one with different speakers. We're trying to invite anybody and everybody, county board members, board of health members, church leaders, all kinds of things. At some point, maybe ask some of them to be speakers in relation to if they have issues, say, within a church community, that they feel that this is impacting them in any way, and we aren't aware of that yet. We want them to be able to come talk to us, because then maybe we can provide some education to them, that will help be covered by the grant through this to provide the training, maybe offer them some Narcan.
Mr. Byrd?
Thank you. Thanks, John. That's a great idea. A quick question for these seminars. Are you going to be recording them so perhaps we could share them via social media, the people that aren't able to attend?
I don't know. I'll ask. We've got some follow-up meetings coming up here next week. We have 2 more meetings before this first one, September 25th. So I can bring that up and see if that's not going to be the case.
Okay. Might be a good
and
way to get
suggest
more
it.
outreach out to the community. It's obviously we all know it's a huge problem, and not just this community, but all over. But if we can, the more information we can get out, or at least if it helps one person, that's one person.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hess?
Thank you, Chairman. John, maybe you ought to send a notice out, like to the mayor's meeting and maybe some of the chiefs of police, and that.
That's a great idea. I appreciate you saying that. We are doing that. There will be formal invitations, I think, coming out. They're being prepared. Just as we go out and about, since I wouldn't see you till next month potentially in relation to this, it's sort of a save the date kind of a notice for you. Just getting it out there that's coming. You should hopefully receive something as we get that ready. That's coming from, I believe, Riverside is helping prepare that, and that's what we'll be discussing and finalizing. I think it's next Monday, and then get it out. Yes, that's all I had. Unless anyone has any other questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Moved on to schools. Dr. Murphy is not here. VAC, Michael Roof.
Just me.
Morning. As you see or don't see, you don't have a report from our commission. As there's been talks of consolidating the county board, there's talks of doing that through the Veterans Assistance Commission. The statute states that there has to be one delegate and one alternate from each charter ship, post, that's VFW, Marine Corps League, American Legion, those things, 1 and 1. Well, for some reason, when the VAC was set up years ago, someone thought it would be great to have 2 delegates and 2 alternates. So we have twice as many than the statute allows. So our board is even larger than the county board. I have 34 board members. And so, as you can imagine, that's why we don't have reports, because I don't know if the weather was awesome last month or what, but we didn't have a quorum to even have the meeting. So we're working on that, and that's one thing that I've tried to talk my commission into, is roll back to what the statute says, and if we lower the number, maybe we have that lower number is more concentrated of those who are committing to showing up month to month. So since I don't have a report, the one thing I can report, since I have it in front of me, is our veterans court certification. You've heard me talk about that month in and month out till it was finished. And we got the letter last week from the AOIC, And since I don't believe you guys have a copy, I'll just read it if I could. Sure. All right. Dear Chief Judge Kramer, I'm pleased to inform you that the Supreme Court has reviewed and approved for certification the Kankakee County Veterans Treatment Court. Congratulations to you and your problem-solving court team members. Certification is valid for 3 years. As you know, members of the Supreme Court Special Court Advisory Committee for Justice and Mental Health Planning, along with the AOIC, completed a review of the applications and the policies and procedures, participant handbooks, and all other supporting materials, and found the program to be in compliance with the Illinois Supreme Court Problem-Solving Courts standards. AOIC staff completed a site visit of the Veterans Court that included observation of staffing, court procedures, and conducting interviews of the members of the PSC teams. On behalf of the court, I commend Kankakee County for implementing evidence-based practices proven to provide participants with necessary treatment, community interventions to reduce the risk of recidivism while enhancing public safety. Again, congratulations on this achievement. So again, this holds us for 3 years. They don't know what the review process is going to be in 3 years, but this sets a standard for us because we are the first veterans court in Illinois to be certified. So this is kind of a proud moment for us because, you know, there's other courts that have been going longer and are larger, and they still haven't even had the interview done. So this is pretty huge for us to accomplish. So I just wanted to let you guys know, since I've been keeping you updated every month of the process and what we were waiting for, and now that it came through, I just wanted to get that out there. So,
Well,
we're gonna put.
first of all,
Thank you.
good job, good work. I think this being, speaking of feedback, I think we're getting that first initial taste of feedback here.
Trying to stay back.
This being the first official certification for a veterans court, I think that's worthy of something for consideration for the full board for proclamation. I think we should make sure that the world knows that we're very proud of what has gone on here. So I'd entertain a motion to have that proclamation put together. Motion by everybody? Can I do that? No. No, I think I'll start with Mr. McConnell, second by Mr. Siroy, because I know there's somebody in this room that goes to a lot of those. So I guess it's a voice vote. All those in favor? Those opposed?
Would you need a copy of this for that as
I
well?
would actually. Yeah, I'll take this. And if,
That's all yours.
You emailed
Unless-
it to me already, didn't you? Didn't you email me
With the letter?
with the letter?
Then you do have it.
Because I'll put this on our Facebook page, but I'll do that after the full board meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I don't want to, step on the moment, as I say.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think that's a good way to. We've already got language going. I figured this would happen. You'd make that motion, so we're going to do some whereases and wherefores and heretofore-withs and whatever the lawyers say. So, any other questions?
None for me.
No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Personnel HR issues. Lynn Mackin. She's still off today, right? That's what I thought. Administrative issues, resignations, appointments, and reappointments. I have a resignation of David Snyder from the Kankakee Township Fire Protection District. And I have the appointment of K. Cyrita C. Jones, DDS, to the Kankakee County Board of Health. We have a dentist. We have a dentist. Can I say it? It was like pulling teeth. All right, sorry. It's been a while. No, I'm sorry. Not supposed to laugh at your own jokes. So I need a motion to approve, please. Mr. Hess, Mr. Snipes, second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. As far as openings go, one opening on the Kankakee County Board of Health. That was the county board's appointment. The person chose not to continue. So, anybody who wants to join the Board of Health, please send them our way. The applications are, by the way, online. So anybody in the public that happens to be watching this, they could fill out the application and send it in. 4 openings on the Kankakee County Regional Planning Commission. 1 opening on the Kankakee River Conservancy District Board. I will mention that position has to live within the Conservancy District. I had an applicant yesterday come in that was from Bourbonnais. So while I appreciate people that want to serve, they have to live within the district full-time. There's those that live there, they have cabins in the district, and that isn't, you can't do that either. So it's very specific in the statute. Mr. Seroy.
Mr. Chairman, how would the applicant know if they live in the district? Would that be on their tax bill?
It would be on their tax
They would
bill.
have to check their tax bill to make sure they're paying taxes to that district.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks.
And I believe there's a map on the Conservancy District's website, but it's better to check the tax bill first. You know, and for your main property, obviously, not for
Right.
your fishing cabin.
Right.
You know, so. Alrighty, Mr. Hess.
I was approached to be, to get on that. I am in the Conservancy District, and I thought it would be a conflict of interest for me, so I denied the request to be on there.
If you're interested, I can run it by the SAO. Since it's a separate taxing body, I don't see how it might be
But we appoint them.
That's a good point. You could abstain. If you'd like me to ask, I will. I think you do well if you have the time, you know.
Let's see what kind of applications we get.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
We approve, basically all the boards that we kind of oversee. So I don't see that ever being a problem. But to check it out would be the issue, unless if you felt you just want to abstain and let the county board.
I do know I can't be a fire trustee because we appoint them.
Right. Well, and we do appoint people like Mr. Snipes, the Housing Authority.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and I think Mr. McConnell, we did appoint you to Board of Health Department.
Right.
So there's precedent.
But
let's
those are board appointments.
Right.
This is not a board appointment. It doesn't have, it's stay in the statute, there has to be a county board member on there like it does for the health department.
Right. But with the other one, I don't think. Well, we'll wait and see what we get in.
Okay.
Yeah,
But it
we'll
doesn't say
definitely. Yeah.
There can be one.
Let's see, one opening on the Kankakee Township Fire Protection District as is resulting from the resignation of Mr. Snyder. Those applications will come back here next month, hopefully. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Declaration of items as surplus property in maintenance. We don't have a list? Well, then we can't declare it because we don't have a list. So that'll come back next month. So, well, we have to have the list of what he's actually gonna make surplus. So we'll push that till yeah. Sure.
Board members and their families bid on this stuff?
I was under the impression we couldn't.
That's what I
And
thought.
that is there anybody that has experience in that? Board members and their families bidding on surplus property through the auction process,
They always said we couldn't, so.
like tax sale and those things. Mr. Hess, do you have? Yeah, I haven't. Can on tax sale for sure. And if you'd like, I can ask the state's attorney because it's an open bidding, or actually it's a sealed bid process, is it not? And a lot of that stuff, do they do sealed?
Sometimes they have it just a garage sale.
That's true, but if you're on that committee, you'd be voting on approving that sale.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just asking.
yeah. Even though it is the highest bidder,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's still, yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Opioid lawsuit. I'd mentioned this in criminal justice. I was approached by Chairman Franks, actually, from McHenry County's board. And a lot of the counties in Illinois are getting together on a opioid lawsuit to sue the pharmaceutical industry, specifically the opioid manufacturers, on their predatory practices, perceived predatory practices. And the first part of it was a fact-finding portion. Everybody who signs up as part of this fact-finding is their basis for the lawsuit. These things are going nationwide. So we didn't commit. It's no money on our end. It never would be on our end. So I signed us up for the first part of this, was to go forward with looking into the possibility of doing this. It's a firm's out of New York City, and then they have an office in Southern Illinois. They're a big nationwide firm. So when that solution or that situation comes to a head and they either proceed or not proceed, I'll report back to the board on exactly what's going on. So basically I joined in the lawsuit with and I had sent it obviously through the state's attorney's office and had them look through all of the paperwork and everything to make sure I wasn't, committing to some fine print that I didn't really pay attention to. But we all know the massive cost, not only in human life, but in time and treasure that the county spends on this problem. And some of this is resulting from people that became addicted after a surgery, and then they find it's cheaper to go the heroin route, and then all of a sudden they're in the ground. And it's not kids. It's mostly, it is kids, but it's a lot of older adults that are in their 40s and 50s that are becoming prey to this. And so it's destroying not only their lives, but their families' lives. So it seems petty, but it's also really destroying our budgets here with all the autopsies and the police work that we have to do with it, and the Narcan that everybody's carrying. We got a grant for some of it. So this is an attempt for us not only to hold their feet to the fire on the practices that that I feel personally, and I'm not making a statement for the board, personally I feel we're very predatory on incentivizing doctors to write more of those prescriptions and things like that, without any of the downstream consequences. So that's all I just want to let you know that's where we're at. And hopefully at some point, even if it's a penny on the dollar, at least we know that there's something pointing to that they are somewhat at fault for what's going on. Mr. Legess.
Isn't there all kinds of painkillers that people can get hooked on and then go to drugs? And is this kind of like singling out one aspect of it, or?
Well, it's more along the lines of the practices the pharmaceutical manufacturers did to get them at the top, their opiates at the top of the list as far as what doctors would prescribe.
Oh, I got you.
So they were incentivizing, and this is the contention of the lawsuit is that it was predatory in the fact of, we'll give you more incentives to sell this push this drug out there. Mr. Byrne, I don't know if you've heard more about this.
Yeah, I have. Matter of fact, there was a lawsuit just settled, I forgot, out east somewhere, where the opioid makers settled with a state. Same idea. But in the pharmaceutical world, what has happened in the past, pharmaceutical companies would give incentives to physicians to prescribe painkillers, like OxyContin. I'll use that as an example. So the reps or whoever, the companies, incentivize the physicians. What happens is these people get hooked on these painkillers, and I think Mr. Gessner said in one of our criminal justice meetings, the average age of an overdose in Kankakee County is in their 40s. And it's not teenagers or 20-year-old people. These are older working adults who may have had back surgery, knee surgery, get prescribed, and there's physicians that'll overprescribe and that's what it is. It's just sort of hold the physician's feet to the fire and the maker's feet to the fire.
Yep. So that's more of a heads up, letting all the committees know at some point it may come back as, hey, this has become a thing, or it's become a settlement or whatever. So, any questions beyond that? All right, moving on. Old business, the River Valley Juvenile Detention Center renegotiation. We, at the end of November, was the expiration of our agreement, if you will, the financial portion of the River Valley Juvenile Detention Center agreement we had with Will County, us, and the Will County PBC. We still have a lease, if you will, but there's no financial portion to that lease at all. So we've been kind of trying to, you remember the situation where the bond payment, and they took the bond payment out of our maintenance fund. We didn't know that we didn't actually make it. We thought it was settled. Well, we've got to clean up all of that old business. And while we're waiting on, figuring out, okay, what do we have to pay for this year? Because there is no financial arrangement for this year. There's money in arrears that we owe for last year. And I'm sure there's something that we need to agree to for this year. We still have $550,000 roughly up in that maintenance fund up there. And we have no agreement for going really forward beyond that. We have an agreement. I don't know if that makes sense. There's no financial side of this. So I've been talking to the Will County Executive's office for about, since really January about this. And the Will County Board is now kind of involved, wondering what's going on. And, there's the PBC up there, their Public Building Commission this is their only piece of business that they handle anymore. They don't do anything else but this. And there's really not much this left as far as their involvement. So we've really got a lot of moving pieces. So I'm waiting on a confirmation on a date, but I'll be going up there with Mr. Rowe, and we're going to start working through the legalities of what is this arrangement going to be going forward. I can tell you that, and it's my intent that we will still be a partner in this facility. We've got a lot of sunk cost in the infrastructure up there. You know, we paid for basically 18% of that building. If you look at it over the long run, we are on the hook for certain amounts of the cost for maintenance, which it should be up to repair. They just put a lot of money in roofs and parking lots and key card systems. So we don't have a lot of ongoing major infrastructure costs, but we do have to pay for it. And I have to balance that with, you know, the court's tendency to release juveniles now. There's really only violent juveniles that are going into this facility. We were at around 8 averaged per month. You know, in there, if you're talking about detention days, there's probably 8, on the average of 8 individuals in there. Will County is much larger, but they may be double that. So we have to be smart about this, but we also have to know that it's a whole different set of rules for handling juveniles. And this facility is absolutely fantastic. It has schools in it. You know, it's very well run. There's courtrooms in there for the Will County folks. Unfortunately, ours, we have to take from here, drive up there, and bring back. And with arraignments, there's a lot of travel back and forth. But we couldn't do that here. And most of the board members have been here for a while know that we don't have the facilities or the services to be able to handle that. It would be much more expensive for us to do that here ourselves. So just to say to this group that I'm going to be renegotiating that, and to know publicly that's our intent to still take advantage of the arrangement that we've had. But it's going to take a better look at what the future looks like. You know, right? And I'm not going to, you know, say any of that right now until we just sit down and talk between the board, Will County Executive, and us. So there'll be more coming hopefully in the next month on that, because we do need to come to some type of agreement in the near term. But it won't be a 20-year term like the last one was. We may be looking at, you know, a 5 or 10-year agreement because, frankly, we're in some tough financial times. We need to see how a lot of this stuff shakes out with the way the courts are handling juveniles. I don't see it going back the other way. I think you'll get more recognizance type bond issues, especially with the new state law. And if it's a nonviolent crime, then it's a recognizance bond, you know, that new thing that we're dealing with. So unless there's any other questions on that, I'll move on to the next item. I just wanted everyone to know what was up. Mr. Snipes.
Due to the high expense of incarcerating or detaining a juvenile, I think back when I was on the board in '90, it was like, it got up to like $90,000 in a month for one juvenile because of the components of education and everything else that had to be resolved in that. My only suggestion is, if we don't utilize those beds, do we benefit by leasing them out to others or whatever? And if we do, then I don't think it's a, you know, that's an issue that would really, other than the negotiation, that would not be in our best interest to continue to pursue.
I understand what you're saying. Mr. Legesse, did you have something?
Yeah, I just to add on to what Bob said, back, I'm sure it was in the 90s, the laws were different and they were detaining a lot more of the juveniles. And we were running into a problem where we were running them all over the state trying to find beds for them because we couldn't do it here because of the segregation and all that kind of stuff. So that's how we ended up with the agreement we're in. I mean, we were spending a lot of money in transport and, you know, all over different counties that could take them, you know.
Sure.
So that's how that evolved.
Sure. And it served its purpose. And like I said, the facility is fantastic. The programs they have are great. Really, you're only looking at probably violent juveniles would be the ones that would be detained that have committed a violent crime. I mean, I think even possession of a handgun now is not considered something that is immediately detainable that they can't bond out for. I believe that is the new law. And I can't remember the class, you know, like not class X, but you know what I mean, those types of language on what it is, but it's problematic, you know, for carrying a non-licensed weapon. But that's just something that if they can't post bail, that they're automatically given a recognizance bond, which is, it's just the world we live in right now. So good or bad or indifferent, we have to deal with it. It puts a big burden on the probation department because they've got to be monitored. Hence, those costs go up. We were talking about unfunded mandates earlier. That's an unrecognized cost by Springfield. So, so I just want to let the board know that I'm not freelancing. I've got to work on this behind the scenes a little bit to have something to bring back. And this is also for the benefit of the Will County Board, to let them know that, you know, we have an intent here to still continue with the partnership. But it has to be the right kind of partnership. So beyond that, moving on to, unless there's any other questions, update of the expense reimbursement section of the Kankakee County Handbook. Now, the one that was in your packet is the incorrect version. There's the correct version was set on top of your table. Basically, this came out of a call about per diem reimbursements. We had a county employee that really, they never had to produce receipts for their per diem. They just said, I was out of town, I need my per diem. And a lot of times that, I mean, in years past, that was just, okay, got the per diem. Well, our policy didn't say that. It said you needed to have receipts. So, and the new travel policy we adopted in January kind of dovetailed into that. And so we, at that point, I realized, well, we updated a new policy in January. This committee did, and the full board, but we never updated the employee handbook. So I sat with the state's attorney upstairs, and then I brought in Lynn after I explained what we needed to do, and then Lynn in the state's attorney's office worked out the detail to this new policy page. So really, it's pretty self-explanatory. All bills must be approved by the department head. You know, but we just wanted to make sure that everything was tied together and clear for the department. So while no one from the state's attorney's office is here, I'll try to answer any questions that you may have, but it just basically ties up what we did in January with our current expense reimbursement policy with the travel policy. Mr. Snipes.
After reviewing it, what I have here, I noticed that it just says hotel bills. Perhaps I just err on the side of caution. I would like the language to go even further to make it what I call reasonable accommodations. That means no Ritz-Carlton, or something that's way out there, but something within reason is comfortable. It is if it's in that particular area, and you use it like if you was at the Abraham Lincoln, or if you was at a Hilton, but nothing that's real elaborate, unless it's the only thing or the only hotel that's there where the convention would be. But to err on the side of caution, I would just say to kind of keep it reasonable given the cost saving techniques that we have in place or that we're trying to establish, so that we can keep our budget in line.
Mm-hmm. Well, I absolutely agree. But I will say that I can't repeat it verbatim, but that part is in the travel policy. This is on the expense reimbursement side of it, what you have to produce in order to get reimbursed. So we did address that in the travel policy. Remember the least expensive mode of transportation, because we had an employee that was driving their car out to Virginia. You remember that?
Right.
And it was like 4 times what a plane ticket would cost. So we did address all of those things in Sorry. Sorry. These microphones aren't on, are they? Let me turn these off. I'm sorry. Peanut Gallery's going to get us in trouble here. But what I can do is I'll make sure that I get a copy of that to you, and if it's not, we'll bring it back.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough.
Because this part is the documentation. The actual policy on where people can stay is a separate policy.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? All right. So we'll check it out. Let me write myself a note. Yes, we will need a motion. Make the motion. Is there a second, Mr. Legess? Is there any other questions? Pending the answer to your question, I'll get to you. Yeah. Any others? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll send this on. Make myself a note. All right, the last item, adding 2 members to the Ethics Commission. We had kind of talked about this. The Ethics Commission with 3 members was already in process. We're already moving forward with it, rather than muddy up the wheels and slow that down by changing language after we already had it in process. I was going to bring it back after we had things set up to say we really need more than 3, because if one person's off, out of town, and they have to meet, you run into situations where it's a 1-to-1 vote and you can't get anything done. And then quorums and people talking to themselves on the side of the road about, and if the third person hears it, we've got issues there. So I was going to ask this committee, can we up this to 5 and bring 2 more people on to this, because it's a non-paid position. We want to make sure that we have enough people to hear these cases. Heaven forbid we ever need to. But as we put it together, also to get more people involved in putting together the Ethics Commission and how they're going to go about their business and things like that. So any questions? First of all, Mr. Byrne?
Oh, well, I was going to make a motion to add 2 members to the.
Okay. There's a motion, a second. Mr. McConnell? I'm sorry, Ms. Weber, second? Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it away from you, but I thought you wanted a second. Trying to spread the wealth. Go ahead.
I just would do a review of the 3 that are on, the names of the 3 that are already on board.
The 3, who they are right now. It's Dr. Dakey, it's Cynthia Hodge, and Dodge, and Dodge, not Hodge, and then Toby Oshesky.
Thank you.
It is Hodge. Sorry.
No, he's in good capacity.
Mr. Legess.
Wenzelman's involved, but he's not on the board.
He's not a voting member. He's the ethics advisor.
Oh, okay.
So you need somebody independent to be able to handle the business. Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All righty. Last thing, it's not on the agenda. I just want to give a mention here because I was approached by a board member about this hiring spree that I'm going through up in administration. Hiring spree. We have a position posted. The reason we do is because the Attorney General's office says by the end of the month I have to appoint an ADA coordinator. And that doesn't exist right now within the county. All municipal units over 50 employees have to have an ADA coordinator. It's something we've drug our feet on however long this has been. That's one of the first things they said is we need an ADA coordinator as I look back through all the information. And so we can't do that anymore. And it was date certain by the end of this month, which is in like 3 days. Now, I could appoint an individual in the office to be the ADA coordinator. Problem is if they go, okay, here's your ADA coordinator, here's the stack of stuff that we need done. I don't have the man hours to do that. And so it's a very specialized skill set. So that is not a part-time position, but if you're going to hire a part-time or a full-time ADA coordinator, there won't be enough work down the road for this person to do it. So we're going to have to train somebody to take this position. So what I did was I reached out, I looked at our operations and all the things that we need to do, the inefficiencies or the efficiencies we could be gained with other duties this person could be doing to justify a full-time position. And I also, once I figured out, okay, well, we have some issues with workforce board since we lost a very long-term employee that handled everything, that had been doing it for 12 years, I believe. The claims part of that is something that we could do up in our office as part of that duty. So that means I can get a reimbursement from workforce board for those claims duties to pay for a portion of that salary. So I've basically figured out a way to cover off a lot of the salary or the half that wasn't for ADA to make a full-time position, just for recruitment purposes. You're not going to be able to find an ADA person that's going to work part-time because that's a highly specialized skill set. So I think we have at least a budgetarily winning situation without just pulling in a great big old salary for somebody who may have, once we get things fixed, maybe hopefully not that much work to do on the ADA side of things. So this is more informational now because we haven't been able to talk to you directly because guess what? That letter showed up after our last executive meeting. So I at least wanted to get that out to you. I have to have this person at least appointed by the end of the month. And I've told Lynn Mackin that you're probably going to be appointed for about a week until we hire somebody. The job has been posted already. So if I would have got serious pushback from the board and you said, no, we don't want to do this, and you can, that's your prerogative, then I would have had to find somebody else for that position here. Mr. Byrne.
As much as, no one wants to spend any money if we don't have to. We have no choice. But again, this is another example of an unfunded mandate being sent down from Springfield onto counties and municipalities. And I'd be curious to know at some point if there is a way to figure out how much this unfunded mandates cost the county each year. I think that with all that we do, and as much as we do a good job of keeping the budget in line, as we saw with the Moody's report, we're doing the right things. But again, how much is mandated to us that we have to spare the expense, but yet gets sent down to us.
Well, an accurate answer would be more than yesterday,
Yeah.
and not as much as tomorrow.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't see that slowing down.
No.
No. So, anything else? Motion to adjourn? Mr. Legess? Mr. Snipes? All those in favor? Those opposed? Have a good day.
Arr.